our thoughts, your stories. J School Journals.
Hello, I'm Clarence Fowler, and welcome to J School Journal's TV magazine show. Thank you for being with us. Here on today's show, we'll be looking at a documentary entitled The Minority Pool, focusing on African Americans in swimming. Here with us today to introduce The Minority Pool are both producers, Bria Bennett and Amanda Legros. Ladies, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
For starters, this is an interesting piece. What was your inspiration for the documentary?
Well, actually, my inspiration was from both my parents and my friends. I've been a swimmer since I was 5 years old, and I actually started competitively at 10. So being the only black team at most meets, and also being a J School journalism student, what not better time to actually produce a documentary like this and cover such issues, because you don't really hear about minorities not knowing how to swim most of the time. So.
And issues it did cover. Now, question for Amanda now. What were some of the challenges you all had in producing The Minority Pool?
Well, our first challenge was the lack of sleep. Yeah, we definitely didn't sleep, but I think one of our biggest challenges was trying to narrow down our ideas. We were dealing with issues with hair, issues with history, issues with parents not wanting to teach their kids, and their parents transferring this over to their children. So I think it was narrowing our ideas into a 15-minute documentary that also focused on all the important parts of why swimming is so important in the African American community.
Okay. And back to Bria now. What were some of the experiences of your own personal experiences, with water to cover something like this?
Well, I said before that I started at 5 swimming competitively, and I'm from Philadelphia, and in my city, I'm on the only black team in the city of Philadelphia. So with that being said, we would always go to meets where there were mostly predominantly white swimmers there, and we would be the only team that was of color that actually stood out, and we knew how to swim. So a lot of times people would come up and say, wow, you know how to swim? And it would be a shock to them, but to us, we're like, well, yeah, our parents, put time into us to teach us how to swim, because it's one of our survival skills that we actually need. So.
Okay, and after all the hard work, what do you think was the message that you guys tried to give to viewers after watching this film?
I think our biggest purpose of creating this documentary was to basically inform parents that this is a priority. This is something that needs to be done, because too many children are dying from something that could be easily prevented. So I think that was our biggest message: is get your children out there. We shouldn't fear water. So, yeah.
Okay, and before we get into the documentary, are there any comments about this film that you two would like to share, or things that you want the viewers to know?
I think that I would like to share that every parent out there needs to teach their children how to swim. Like I said, it's a basic survival skill that we need. And a lot of African American children are dying, and it's a leading cause of death with young children from the ages 4 to 12 years old. So it is very important that they know how to swim, or even survive, even if they're just pushed in the water. So.
Okay. Well, there you have it. And now we're going to take a look at The Minority Pool, produced and edited by Bria Bennett and Amanda Legros. Check it out.
Good job. Okay, bounce a little bit. I'm going to hold it.
Look at Colin Jones up in lane 2, second from the top. Irvin's trying to battle back 2 below him in lane 4. It is Jones up top in lane 2. Adrian's going to the wall as well. And it's Jones and Irvin 1-2.
A near-drowning experience at the age of 5 has transformed gold medalist Colin Jones into the 3rd fastest African-American swimmer to make the U.S. Olympic team. But this milestone is rare of its kind, as the absence of black swimmers has become a threatening reality. Is this a fear or an excuse?
I don't swim, not because I didn't want to swim, because I was with my grandparents. I was in rural North Louisiana. There was water out there, but I wasn't going out there. There were snakes in that water. You know what I mean? That's fear. Okay, that's not an excuse. That's fear.
My brother is 10. He still doesn't swim. My sister is about to turn 18, and she's like terrified of water. And then especially after my cousin died, it's like we don't want to go in a pool.
African Americans have a strikingly rich history that dates back to pre-slavery days. But the disconnect between the black community and swimming emerged during the era of the slave trade. Slave owners stripped them of this basic survival skill to prevent a means of escape. These restrictions traveled decades later to the Civil Rights Movement with the enforcement of Jim Crow laws. African Americans were beaten, mocked, and ridiculed for trying to swim in areas intended for whites only.
Swimming was, in my mind, a very limited recreational activity for black youth. You couldn't learn and you couldn't participate in activity, particularly by laws and particularly by efforts to other people from Plessy versus Ferguson time period, who wanted to sit on a train in New Orleans to Brown versus Board of Ed almost 100 years later. You've got a big gap of access.
During the late 1950s, beaches and pools were the most violent scenes of racial prejudice. But there were safe havens for blacks to swim freely that appeared during the decline of segregation at colored-only reserved beaches, but these areas were in isolation. Today, the fear of water is so deeply rooted that the swimming culture has appeared to be non-existent and abnormal in the black culture.
I guess more of a traditional cultural perspective, it has been something that has been passed on from generation to generation in the black community, that as a people, we don't swim. That's just something we don't do. And once that has been become part of the black family socialization process, then we begin to believe that, oh, okay, well, as a black person, it's just understood that I don't swim, so let me go play basketball. I don't swim, so let me go play football because that's something that I'm supposed to do as a black person.
Are blacks genetically incapable of swimming? Is it a generational curse? Or are there underlying factors as to why African Americans avoid water?
You know, the choice to swim has nothing really, in my mind, to do with one's limited desires, but it's exposure by the family. The family has to have the means and the resources, transportation to go. But in large part, it's society. There weren't pools and books that you read, of course, that talked about limited access to public swimming, separate but equal. The limitations on black people in that realm is really a driving force, the backstory to where we are right now.
The jacket is there, you go.
In many cases, black parents who never learned to swim pass this on to their children, resulting in a high number of drowning deaths from African American kids.
It was around 7 at night, and I was at my grandmother's house. It was me, my mom, my brother, my sister, my aunt, another one of my aunts, and like a few cousins. And my dad called my phone because my mom was outside on her phone. So my dad called my phone. He was like, "Where's your mom?" So I was like, "She's outside. She's on the phone." He was like, "Oh, tell her to call me ASAP." And like in his voice, I could hear like something was wrong. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like what happened?" So my mom was still on the phone, so I gave her my phone, and she was on the phone. Then she walked in like 2 minutes later, and like she came in screaming. She was like, "Michaela drowned." So everybody's like what? So she was like, "Michaela drowned." So they hadn't told us that she was gone yet, so we didn't know. So we waited for a little while longer, and my aunt, Michaela's mom, she was still in Georgia, but Michaela was in Florida with her dad. So my mom went to rush to my aunt's house to make sure if something happened, she would be there. So my mom left us there, and as she was pulling off, somebody called her and told her that Michaela was gone. When I found out that she died, I think it like hurt me the most because I was mean to her the last time I saw her. But she passed away, and then a couple of my friends in Miami, they called me and they were like, "Are you okay? We saw your cousin's story on the news." So I was like, I didn't know that it was that big to be on the news, things like that. So when my friends called me to tell me that they heard her story on the news, that's when like it really hit me the most, like she's really gone. When I found out how she died, my uncle took her to a pool party with one of his sisters. And my aunt from Georgia, she was kind of like, she didn't want Michaela to go, but she allowed her because she didn't want to be like a mean parent and say, "No, you can't go." So she allowed her to go. But my uncle's sister left Michaela outside of the pool, like outside at the pool unattended with like another child. And I don't even know if the other child could swim. But she left her there, and when she came back, Michaela was like at the bottom of the pool. So she doesn't know like what happened, if like Michaela tried to fight it, but when she came outside, she was at the bottom of the pool, like it was already too late.
With the rising number of tragic deaths of African American children and drowning, parents are recognizing the importance of teaching their child and learning themselves.
All the way to the top. Super boy.
As a parent, I don't swim. However, I know the importance for my son, and I'm taking lessons myself, and so my anxieties of not swimming, I know not to pass it on to my child.
But for many low-income families in urban communities, there are issues with the expense of swimming lessons and an absence of accessible pool facilities, a problem that is worst among African Americans.
It has been a combination of African Americans just not having the access to swimming facilities, so the structural access has been denied, and then also the financial access to actually go and say take swimming lessons, private lessons, if possible. That just hasn't been something that traditionally African Americans have been able to do.
The low participation of Black families in swimming programs leaves many to question, is it too late?
My brother is 10. He still doesn't swim. My sister is about to turn 18, and she's like terrified of water. And then especially after my cousin died, it's like we don't want to go in a pool. Sometimes it's a little hard. Like, I might like pass a swimming pool and it's like I imagine like her body being at the bottom of the pool. Like, I can't save her. Things like that.
The cultural disconnect between African Americans and swimming has stolen the lives of several young children. But good or bad, the ties to water remain a significant part of Black culture.
You think about Emmett Till, who's killed in Mississippi. Young boy, dynamics, it had nothing to do with swimming or anything, but where they find him in water. The bottom of the lagoon down there in Mississippi, with the barbed wire tie around his neck, tied to a tractor tire. Had been beaten badly. So you think about that. You think about all the association with water and Black people historically.
The historical background of skilled Black swimmers proves that there is hope for African Americans today. National nonprofit organizations like the YMCA have established swimming programs for children, teens, and adults. Ambassador for African American Swimmers, Cullen Jones, has dedicated his life and talents to teach minorities how to swim through motivational speaking, youth clinics, and private lessons. Jones hopes to prevent tragic deaths of children like 5-year-old Michaela and to reinforce the strong aquatic traditions of our African ancestors.
Now that was great. But don't go away. We have another special guest joining us after the break. Stay tuned. You're watching J School Journals magazine show.
Yeah. Salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, throw a ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, swap us next Sunday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darks there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live United for education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
Yeah. That's it. have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. When you adopt a child from foster care, just being there makes all the difference.
I am an American.
I am an American.
I am an American.
I am an American.
I am
an American.
I am an American.
I am American.
I am an American.
I'm an American. I'm an American.
I am American.
I am an American.
I'm an American.
I am an American.
I am an American.
Welcome back to J School Journals. I'm Clarence Fowler, and I'm here with one of the experts who was actually featured in the film The Minority Pool, Dr. Dawn Norwood. Dr. Norwood, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Now, we just finished watching a documentary on, and what's your perspective on African Americans in swimming? Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. Well, first of all, your perspective on African Americans in swimming, it was very insightful. But now, when asked to share your thoughts about the issue, what made you want to participate in the film?
Actually, that's part of my line of research that I've done and am doing now. I actually did my dissertation work on the minority swimming gap. So when Ms. Bennett asked me to participate, I was excited to share my thoughts, opinions, in any way possible to help them shed more light on this very serious issue.
Okay, and by now you've seen the documentary several times. What is your initial thoughts about the production and how it was done by both Ms. Legros and Ms. Bennett?
I thought they did a fantastic job, especially given the fact that it was only a 15-minute documentary. I think that they touched upon a lot of key points related to the issue in such a short amount of time. I thought that it was outstanding, actually, and probably something that I would not mind using it even as a teaching tool in my own classes and the sport field in which I teach.
Okay, and what do you feel some of the ways that we could get more minorities out into the pool or out at the beach and involved in swimming?
Wow, that's a loaded question that probably I could do another dissertation on in terms of an answer. But in terms of a short list of things that we can do, I think probably, like I said in the documentary, attacking it from a policy standpoint, really getting more of a government push behind this issue and also pouring more public dollars into Learn to Swim programs. But going a little bit beyond that, I think it's important for swimming practitioners and aquatic practitioners to begin to design programs that are specifically designed around addressing the needs of African Americans, addressing the constraints that specifically African Americans experience when it comes to swimming. So, for instance, with females, they have, some have reported having issues with hair, and hair maintenance being a constraint to their swimming participation. So maybe you want to design a program that will have something built in there that might engage, as trivial as it may sound, local hair salons or braiding shops or something like that will offer their services in kind to remove that constraint so that the Black females will be free to then say, okay, I'll participate. And then other than that, we might want to look at getting some of our more powerful, larger Black organizations, national organizations behind this and calling attention to it as well. It can't just be, the Centers for Disease Control or just the American Red Cross. We might want to look at our Black Greek letter organizations, making that a part of their health initiatives on a national level, which, Black Greeks are pretty influential. So that might be something that could help move us towards getting more to participate.
Okay, that's definitely an idea. Now, what do you believe is the major issue now, since swim classes are being offered at public facilities such as recreational centers and local YMCAs?
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about it?
I think that it's just so many years of the Black family socialization process, and it has become this idea that blacks don't swim or we don't participate in swimming. That has become ingrained in our culture, and it has become something that has been passed down from generation to generation, and we can trace it all the way back to issues related to the Middle Passage. And so I think that's probably one of the major reasons if our parents don't swim and participate in swimming, they're more likely to encourage or not encourage their kids to participate. So we've got to get parents on board, maybe even offer some learn to swim courses for the adults as well. And one thing that research has shown is that once an African American reaches the age of 18 and they have not learned how to swim, they're almost twice as likely as their white counterparts to not learn how to swim throughout the rest of their lives. So if we get that going and they pass that on to their kids, they're likely to not swim as well, unfortunately.
Wow, it's funny you allude to that because my parents didn't like us going to the pools. But
yeah.
The next question, as far as when you see successful black swimmers, guys on the Olympic stage such as Cullen Jones, do you think he's someone that black children can look up to in order to break the fear of getting in the water?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably if he's placed more in the forefront, and he has been very influential with USA Swimming, and I think it's been great. He's worked with their Make a Splash program, and they've had quite a few minorities to participate. But the thing is, we need more Cullen Jones. We also need, I think, a black female or minority female that we can see in the same light to also encourage our black females to get out there and swim as well. I think he's great for black males. Ironically, though, black males still tend to have the highest drowning rate of any other race or ethnic group at right around 71 or 72%. And as far as females, we're not even participating. Really. We have a 77% self-reported inability to swim compared with our counterparts who are right at 45%. So that's a huge gap. So what that says is that we're not even getting out there to participate in terms of black females. But I think the more we see people who look like us, whether it's male or female, black male or female, then maybe we'll become a little bit more apt to participate. And then, of course, we need that parental support as well.
Okay. Now, final question tonight, Dr. Norwood. Have you ever had a personal experience with water, maybe where you or possibly a family member has suffered from the issues that was covered in the documentary?
That's a really great question. I have to be honest and say that being enlightened and doing my research, I came to this research because I had my own issues with knowing the importance of swimming and the benefits, the health benefits from swimming, but I just had this thing with what am I going to do with my hair? And so I can totally relate to that. But as a kid growing up, it's not anything that my parents pushed for me. They didn't really swim. My dad was in the Navy, but once he got out, that was it. It was over. And I can remember taking swimming lessons as a kid in summer camp. But as far as something that we did on a regular basis, just wasn't really that important. But I have a niece who is very active in swimming. I encourage her to swim. I swim with her when I can. And so we're trying to break that cycle with her.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Norwood.
Thank you.
Well, folks, it's about that time to dry off and pull out your towels because the pool is now closed. Once again, I want to thank our guests here, Dr. Norwood, Bria, and Amanda, and hopefully those of you watching at home gained a better understanding of the importance of learning how to swim. For J School Journals Magazine Show, I'm Clarence Fowler. Thanks for watching.